Hey everyone, welcome back to Path of Exile, and in today's video we are doing another hollow palm technique character, but this time it's a Berserker and he's using Frenzy. And I am doing this for a couple of reasons. The main one is that the last character was a bit expensive and I still wanted to play with hollow palm technique, so I decided to reuse some of the gear I was using during the entire league, while also getting some stuff here and there, and the end product is this character. And as you're gonna see from the gameplay, he's actually really freaking strong, even stronger than the last hollow palmer that I did a week ago, but you'll see that later on in the video. So if you enjoy the content, be sure to subscribe to the channel, otherwise a rating and a comment are welcome as well. As always, you can skip the commentary portion of the video by following the timestamps on screen right now, or in the comments below, or in the description below, or you know, the divisions to the video that YouTube does nowadays. So with all of that said, let's actually talk about clapping really freaking hard and watching enemies explode. So before we take a look at the character's gear and his gem setups, we are gonna check out the skill tree, and for that we are gonna begin with the Ascendancy, as we are playing a Berserker because we want the free life leech and mana leech, the rage generation, the rage bonuses, and also the 40% more damage with the 10% increased damage taken debuff. This little node, while pretty powerful in the long run, is also gonna get us in trouble in the long run, because considering the fact that we are not using Fortify and that our defenses are pretty much based around, you know, not getting hit in general, that means that our character is pretty akin to a angry piece of wet tissue paper. We are as tough as that, and because of that, our main defense is deleting stuff before it even gets a chance of hitting us. And thanks to that idea, I've built the character in such a way that he's maximizing his damage output, because again, I don't wanna get hit at all and I wanna delete everything I come across with. So because of that, I've got more than 1k dexterity, and I've also taken impale stuff over here, some impale stuff over there, some dual wielding stuff over here, you know, maximizing dexterity. We are playing with Frenzy, so we get to take extra Frenzy charges on the way. We are using a split personality for the dexterity and maximum life per node between this guy and our starting point in the skill tree, and we're also gonna be using 2 large cluster jewels, one of which is gonna house one with nothing for hollow palm technique, and the other one is gonna house a single medium cluster jewel. This medium cluster jewel has Evil Eye and Exploit Weakness because we are using vulnerability on hit, and also because Evil Eye is gonna give us a little bit more damage, and also blind enemies, which is gonna help us in the long run. So to wrap up the skill tree portion of this video, we're gonna take a look at the large cluster jewels. The first one has Drive the Destruction, Smite the Weak, and Fuel the Fight. And we are not gonna spec into Fuel the Fight, so that we only take 5 points into the large cluster jewel and get the most used out of it. And for that, Drive the Destruction is gonna give us some attack damage when on full life, and Smite the Weak is gonna give us increased attack damage against maimed enemies. Since we use maim in our single target setup, we are gonna bask in that 40% increased attack damage in the end. The other large cluster jewel has Exploit Weakness, Master the Fundamentals, and Furious Assault. Furious Assault again is not getting spec'd into, so that we can use 5 points and maximize the usefulness out of the large cluster jewel. Exploit Weakness is pretty much giving us more vulnerability curse effect, as it is doing on the medium cluster jewel, while also giving us some increased fist damage, and Master the Fundamentals is giving us resistances and increased fist damage. Resistances are useful because at the end of the day, we are lobotomizing this character's gear choices as we are playing with hollow palm technique. So that's pretty much gonna be it for the skill tree portion of this video. Again, we are trying to maximize the dexterity, the frenzy charges, the damage, because that is going to be our first layer of defense, deleting everything before it even gets a chance of touching us. So now we're gonna move on to the gear and the gem setups. So when it comes to getting up the character, remember that we are playing with hollow palm technique and we wanna count as unencumbered. By being unencumbered, we cannot use weapons or gloves, but we count as dual wielding, we've got a lot of attack speed, and we get a lot of physical damage per 10 dexterity. but we also want to cap our resistances and also hit a life threshold where we are comfortable with. And because of that, the challenge is gonna be avoiding the use of those slots and also covering everything else. So for that, the first thing we are using is an astral plate. In my case, it's the same astral plate I keep using in every single build this league. And this astral plate has life, increased dexterity, chaos res, chance to gain a frenzy charge on hit, and the enemies you kill explode. In your case, and in my case really, the frenzy charges on hit are irrelevant because we are playing with frenzy, which is giving us a frenzy charge either ways whenever we hit an enemy. So when it comes to getting something similar to this, I would advise not buying it because at this point in the league, something similar is pretty expensive. So to craft it yourself, you have to slam a Crusader body armor with the enemies you kill explode, and a Redeemer body armor with increased dexterity, and hopefully get something as close to this. Moving on to the rest of the gear, the first ring is a onset ring with Warlord influence that has life, cold res, vulnerability on hit, fist damage attacks, and a lot of dexterity. This is important because this ring is actually the ring that I was using on the last build, but it had chaos res instead of the vulnerability on hit. I removed the chaos res and slammed a physical modifier because Warlord influenced rings as a suffix can roll vulnerability, which is a physical modifier. However, when it comes to crafting something like this, I'd recommend getting an onset ring with life and as much dexterity as possible, and then slamming a Warlord Exalt, removing whatever it rolled that is not vulnerability, and slamming or, adding the stuff that you require slowly. And that way you can get something as close to this. The other ring is a Circle of Guilt with attributes and Global Fizz as an implicit, and it also has increased Herald of Purity buff effect and also increased fizz damage while affected by Herald of Purity. So in your case, you can probably, prioritize the attributes first before you get anything else, as at the end of the day, the more attributes or the more dexterity we get, the more damage we get, and anything else is a commodity or, a luxury. So at the end of the day, as many attributes as you can get, and the Herald of Purity buff effect and the damage while affected by Herald of Purity are the priority. The amulet has life, dexterity, fizz damage attacks, resistances, and I crafted negative total mana cost of skills. I also crafted negative total mana cost of skills on the other ring. Remember to get as many resistances as possible because at the end of the day, you're not using every single gear slot, which is why maximizing them is a priority, alongside getting as much dexterity and some fizz damage attacks to deal more damage. We allocate Panopticon to get increased buff effect of our Ancestral Totems, and since we use a Vaal Ancestral Warchief and an Ancestral Protector during single target, that means that we also hit pretty hard during boss fights. For the helmet, we have increased frenzy damage per frenzy charge, which is absolutely mandatory as an enchantment, alongside dexterity, life, and resistances. In your case, try to get something that can have dexterity as a natural spawn, because that way you can spam essences until you get something similar to my helmet. That is how I crafted mine. So yeah, for boots we use two-toned boots with movement speed, life, dexterity, and resistances, because again we have to maximize those in order to get our character geared up. And for the belt we use a hunter influenced Stygian Vice with life, increased attributes, increased maximum life, resistances, and I crafted increased damage. You can also get something similar to this if it is elder influenced, so that is another option when it comes to crafting this thing. And finally, for the jewel in the belt, it has dexterity, a lot of it, life, and evasion rating that is getting turned into armor thanks to iron reflexes. For flasks we use a sulfur flask, a silver flask, and a lion's roar. And for gem setups we got frenzy linked to brutality, to multi-strike, to impale, ancestral call, and awakened melee fist damage. You can also use awakened brutality, but I'm not using it because I was cheap and I didn't have that much currency to play with. And for single targets you're gonna replace maim for ancestral call because that is gonna give us more damage. And if I'm being totally honest, ancestral call is actually more than enough when it comes to clearing maps, and I'd wager that 95% of the time you're gonna use this regardless of how useful Maim is for single targets, especially since Ancestral Call gives you some melee range, which is also useful to not get absolutely blasted by stuff nowadays. So yeah. For the rest of the gems, Herald of Purity, because we're using a Circle of Guilt, Dread Banner, Pride, Vaal Haste, Flame Dash, Vaal Ancestral Warchief, Ancestral Protector, Berserk, and Enduring Cry. Remember that we are also using Call to Arms, which is making Warcries instant, and Enduring Cry is now instant, so we can move around and cast it if it is placed as our first skill. So with all of that being said, that is gonna be it for this character. And even though the endgame gameplay that I've got is only Srs, you're gonna see that this character hits really freaking hard, which should be more than enough to justify playing him. I didn't play that much with him because, as I said earlier, I spent my entire weekend playing Borderlands 3, and while I personally think that was a huge waste of my time, that is why I didn't get to record as much gameplay as I would have liked, which is why I only got what I've got today, which is Srs. So yeah, that's gonna be it for the gear portion, the skill tree portion, whatever portion, and now I'm gonna leave you with the Srs fight, and I wanna thank you for watching the video. I hope that you enjoyed it, and if you did, remember to sub to the channel, leave a rating and a comment, and we can defeat the YouTube algorithm that way. So yeah, thank you so much for watching again. I hope that you have a nice weekend, and I'll catch you on the next video. Peace out.
What's this? A real challenge? You've finally caught my attention. Die.
Why run? What's the point?
The others found strength in their projections. They became reliant on them. I am not so foolish.
I have seen beyond. Why run? What's the point? Creation itself. Pointless. Creation itself. Rain of
Like,
stars.
really interesting enough to warrant all this pain.
Watch beauty crumble. Rain of stars. Glorious flames. You are
Do
nothing.
you yet see the futility of your efforts? Die.
I have seen beyond.
Die.
Watch beauty crumble.
I cannot do this yet.
Pointless. Rain of stars.
Edge of death. my heart races. I am alive.